Hello, friends. Dr. Barry here. I wanted to go live for a few minutes and talk to you about a very important topic, and that's the Game Changers movie. So I'm live right now on Instagram and on Facebook, trying to reach as many people as I can because this is very important information. And first thing, so I'm talking about the Game Changers movie, which is a vegan, plant-based movie. And I'm not going to call it propaganda. I'm not going to call it any of the negative things that you may have heard or you may have even said. We're going to call this a movie made by people who believe that a plant-based diet is the best diet in the world for human beings. I don't believe that. I'll disclose that right now, right up front. But there are so many people who are enthused by the plant-based diet. It seems like there's a lot of celebrities endorsing it, and it seems like there's a lot of science behind it. And so I want to talk about that. So we're going to go through kind of the major points that the Game Changer movie made, and I'm going to kind of talk about each point as I go through them. If you've seen the Game Changer movie, put it in the comments that you've seen it. I want to see how many of you guys have seen it. Now, first and foremost, let me say I've seen the Game Changers movie. I've seen it 2 times. And so I think every single person watching this, you should watch the Game Changers movie. Not because I believe it's right, but because I believe that if we're going to help everyone, not just carnivores and keto and low carb, that is our tribe, but in the end of the day, we're all family. Everybody on this planet, we're all human brothers and sisters. And so we should want to help everyone, not just people who believe exactly like we believe. So I encourage you to watch the Game Changers movie. I don't believe there's anything in there that's going to make you change your mind about keto or carnivore or low carb. I think that you're going to, once you've heard this discussion and then you go watch the Game Changers, you're going to see that the people who made this movie, they believe very much in a plant-based diet. They believe very much that we should not eat meat. I think the majority of them do believe that meat is unhealthy. But I think really in their heart of hearts, they believe that it is mean, that it is evil to kill and eat other animals. I think that's what they believe in their heart of hearts. And I'm not making fun of that. I actually used to believe that. I saw a movie when I was 10 or 11 years old about how an egg farm is run, a huge industrial egg farm. And as you may or may not know, when they hatch eggs to have new chickens for laying, roosters don't lay eggs. And so the rooster chicks get basically ground up and turned into either fertilizer or food for the chickens. And I was horrified by this. And they actually followed this one little dark rooster because they only want the light-colored hens. And so not only was he a rooster, but he was a dark-colored rooster. And so he kept escaping, and I was rooting for this little dark rooster through the whole movie. And after that movie, I didn't eat eggs or chicken for years. Probably until I was 16 or 17, and I had become enough of an athlete that I needed some meat in my diet. And so I get the emotional argument. I get that. And so let's go through some things that they talk about in the Game Changers movie. And again, I'll say I want every single one of you guys to watch the Game Changers movie so that you can understand how vegans and plant-based and vegetarians, I want you to understand how they think and also how they feel. Because if we're going to help them, we have to understand their motivation and we have to understand why they think what they think. So also there may be a special appearance later on in this video by Beckett Berry. You may or may not know, Nisha and I had our little keto carnivore baby recently, and he's almost 2 weeks old. He's doing great. He's exclusively breastfed, and he may or may not make an appearance, depending on his mood and whether he's crying or not. So let me know if you've seen the Game Changers, and let me know if you plan on seeing it. So let's jump into this. Now, one of the very biggest points they made was that the gladiators back in Rome ate a plant-based diet. And immediately it becomes obvious that they don't know what the gladiators' station in life was back in Rome. If you watch modern movies about gladiators, you would think that they are glorified, that they were at the very upper crust of society, that they were respected and looked up to, and nothing could be further from the truth. Reading just a little bit about Roman history, you'll quickly understand that the gladiators were the lowest class of people in Roman society. They were prisoners, they were homeless people, or they were prisoners of war. They were slaves. That's what the gladiators were. And so once you understand the actual place of gladiators in Roman society, then you're like, oh, wait a minute. Okay. So they were not heroes. They were not like our UFC fighters today. They didn't make the choice to fight. They were made to fight. Basically, either you could fight and maybe live, or we would just cut your throat right now and you would die. That was your choice. And so understanding that now, they were not heroes, they were not looked up to in Roman society. They were basically human fodder. They were slaves. And so some slaves were given a plow to cut the earth, and some slaves were given a sword to cut human flesh. There was nothing glamorous about being a gladiator. It was a terrible existence. You died very young in life because you were killed. That's what you were for. You were a slave to do battle. And so with that being understood, now you're like, oh, okay, so gladiators weren't these ultimate fighters. They weren't these ultimate athletes. They weren't that at all. They were slaves who the Roman citizens wanted to see them get their guts cut out. That's what gladiators were. And so now that we understand that they were slaves, we understand that if you have slaves, you feed your slaves the cheapest diet you can feed them that'll keep them from starving to death. And that's what they did with the gladiators. They fed them wheat and grains and beans. That's what they lived on. They never got meat because meat was reserved for people who actually held a profitable place in society. And knowing that, you're like, oh, okay, well, yeah, duh, you're going to feed them the cheapest gruel you can feed them. But in this movie, the Game Changers, they still believe this kind of childhood myth that the gladiators were some kind of superstar, rock star fighters back in Roman times. And that's just not the case at all. They were slaves at the lowest socioeconomic status you could possibly exist. And so they fed them the cheapest diet, which was beans and grains. That's what they fed them. And so saying that the gladiators ate a plant-based diet is actually, that makes me less likely to eat a plant-based diet if I know the truth about gladiators. They were not Russell Crowe. That's not who they were. They were captured slaves who were made to fight or die. That's who they were. Now, number two, they talk next about UFC fighters. They talk about Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz. Conor McGregor is not a carnivore, but he is a very meat-heavy eater. And Nate Diaz is a vegetarian. And so in this one fight, Nate, the vegan, beat Conor McGregor, the animal eater. He eats plants as well, but he also eats animals. And so they just talk about that one fight where Nate won. They don't talk about the rematch where Conor actually won. And they also don't talk about the fact that Conor McGregor, before this fight that he lost, he was trying to cut 15 pounds off his weight to fight another fighter. That fighter backed out, and so Conor had to eat like crazy to gain all the weight back to meet the weight class to fight Nate Diaz. So he was obviously eating a bunch of crap. Oh, I think we may have a special guest star here. How's this baby doing? Hey, look at this. Here's Becky Berry. He looks like he's full of booby milk.
He is.
Is he full of booby milk?
He is full.
Look at him. He's so happy. See, he inherited these number 11s from me. Even though he's got nothing to be mad about, he looks mad. See that?
He's very serious.
He's very serious.
Are you awake? Are you going to wake up?
Say hi.
Look at that serious face.
He is high on Soma breast milk. Oh, I love him.
Not that I'm taking Soma. He's just...
No, right, yeah. Breast milk is melatonin / Soma in a boob. That's what it is. Look at that. He's like, oh, I feel so good right now. You got to love this baby, right? I loved him the minute I saw his face. I was like, yep, okay, I'm in love. There you go.
Oh, there we go. You gonna open
There
your
he
eyes?
is. Say hi.
Uh-huh.
Nope. He's just going to scowl. I don't know where he gets that scowl from.
Why so serious? Which one's my phone? Which one's your phone?
This is your phone, I think, with the good video.
Okay.
It looks better, doesn't
I
it?
was trying to see if yours is.
Yeah.
I think it's just Facebook.
Facebook, even on yours, it's still cutting out.
That's what I'm
I've been
saying.
getting-
Maybe it's Facebook.
Yeah, it's got to be
Maybe we need to
Facebook.
update. I don't know if I've
Well,
updated.
we upgraded everything. I
I
don't
don't know
know,
that
guys.
I
On
have.
Facebook, I know it's cutting in and out. I think on the replay it'll be fine though. So you can definitely share this video if you have someone who's considering plant-based or vegan. On the replay, I think this looks much better on Facebook. But let me just say that before I get back to my points. You're welcome to share this because so many, especially young people, they feel bad about eating animals, especially mammals, especially cuddly, soft, warm mammals. And we have to help them understand that we're not being mean by eating animals. That's what we're supposed to do. Just like the lion is not being mean, just like the chimpanzees in the jungle. They've eaten some monkeys almost to the point of extinction, and they eat them head first. They eat the brain first. And so you may have thought that chimpanzees are vegan, but they're not at all. They hunt in groups just like we did, and they kill monkeys, and they like to eat the young monkeys. I guess they're more tender. And they've almost hunted some monkeys to extinction. And you can look that up on your search engine if you don't believe me and read about the chimpanzees. They're vicious hunters. They are very good hunters. And it's almost like they're trying to follow in our footsteps or something. Now, back to this. Now, number 3, they talk about protein amount. And they're like, you can get all the protein you need from a plant-based diet. And indeed, if you eat enough grams of plants, you can get protein. But there's a problem with protein quality. The protein quality and the amino acid profile of plant-based protein is nowhere near as good as animal-based protein. So you could eat a 3-ounce little piece of steak. Not that I would ever do that. That might be an appetizer. But you'd have to eat a cup full of lentils to get the same amount of quality protein as in a 3-ounce piece of steak or meat. That's not, you can't even say, so you'd have to be like a gorilla. You'd have to eat for 18 hours a day in order to get enough protein from a plant-based diet. It just doesn't work that way. Now, the next one is very arresting visual that they had in the movie. And they basically fed some guys a plant-based burrito, and they fed some other guys a meat burrito. And then they took a blood sample 2 hours, 3 hours later, and they spun it down. And in the guys who had eaten the meat, the serum, which is the clear kind of yellowish portion of the blood, was cloudy. But the guys who had eaten the plant-based burrito with no meat in it, their serum was clear. And they show this to a bunch of people, and everybody's like, oh, I don't want my serum to be cloudy. That's terrible. I'll only eat plants from now on. Problem is, your serum is supposed to be cloudy. Whoever said your blood is supposed to be crystal clear? Your blood is a transport medium for you to transport amino acids and fatty acids and triglycerides and all these other things that your body needs. Your blood shouldn't be clear. And so just because the serum is cloudy, that doesn't prove anything whatsoever. But it looks very visually stunning, like, oh my God, look at that cloudy serum. It doesn't mean anything. It's meaningless, okay? But yet they hold it up as proof that you should eat a plant-based diet, and it's silly science. It doesn't prove anything. Let's see. What was the next one? So every single study that they promote as science, like this large study showed, is a correlational study. And you may have heard me talk about correlation studies on my YouTube videos. You can't prove anything from a correlation study. All you can prove is correlation. This thing may somehow be related to this thing, or it may not. You can never prove causation. And then all of the correlation studies were done by giving people food frequency questionnaires that ask questions like, how many cups of ribs have you eaten in the last 6 months? I mean, and so it winds up being a multiple guess test, and you either just guess the answer because the questions are very obtuse, or you make something up because you're afraid that they're going to judge you if you really tell them truly how many cups of ribs you've eaten in the last 6 months. So food frequency questionnaires giving you correlation studies are the worst kind of science out there. Never would we use that kind of study for physics or for biochemistry or for even pharmaceutical companies. They can't use that kind of research to get a pill FDA approved. They have to use a much higher standard of science. And so that's the whole point here, is this is terrible science. It doesn't prove anything. Next thing they say is that heme iron is bad for you somehow. And this is the iron you would get from eating red meat. And once again, when you look at the research, there's no control studies, there's no double-blinded studies. It's just correlation studies, plus or minus food frequency questionnaires. And so never has heme iron been proven to be bad for human beings. Actually, in the world, iron deficiency anemia is one of the most common diseases in the world, and one of the most common killers of young children in the world is iron deficiency anemia. And it's not because they don't get enough grains and enough beans, it's because they don't get enough meat. When you live in a very, very poor country, the last thing you're ever going to be handed to eat is a ribeye or some ribs or some eggs. You're going to be handed some ground up wheat or ground up corn. There's no iron in that, and you're going to get anemic. Next thing they talk about is that vegans have lower cholesterol on average than people who eat meat. And I agree. That is 100% true on average. And for some people, if they're meat heavy, keto or carnivore, their total cholesterol will go up. Some people's will stay the same. Some people's will go down. It's irrelevant. It makes no difference whatsoever. All of the studies, as I've talked about on multiple YouTube videos, if you just go to YouTube and search for Dr. Berry Cholesterol, you'll find them. And I go into the research. It's just ridiculous research. It doesn't help a thing. It doesn't prove anything, definitely. So yeah, your cholesterol may go up if you eat fatty meat, but I don't care. My last cholesterol that I had checked was 250, and I'm happy about that. I don't think that's a risk factor for heart attack or stroke. I've got a brand new baby. You think I would be endangering my health if I truly thought that a elevated total cholesterol was bad for me, that increased my risk of a heart attack? Hell no, I wouldn't be doing that. I'd be eating wheat and beans if I thought that was going to make me live longer. I am eating the proper human diet that I think will help me live the longest and have the longest health span. And for me, that's carnivore. For you, it may be keto or low carb or something else. Next, they talk about the GI tract of plant-eating animals versus carnivores. And they get this all wrong. It's really terrible what they say. So our gut, our stomach, intestines, large colon, all that is much more like a carnivore or an omnivore than it is like a vegan at all. So we'll just compare our guts to a gorilla, who definitely, now gorillas might eat a little meat, but they're not like chimpanzees. I don't think they eat a lot of meat. I think they're pretty much plant eaters. They have a very high stomach pH, whereas we have a very low, very acidic stomach pH. Our stomach pH is almost as acidic as the stomach pH of a buzzard. Definitely as acidic as a dog, as a cat, as a coyote, a fox. We have super low stomach acid, unless you're taking Prevacid or Prilosec or Nexium, which I hope you've stopped by now. First of all, that's not true at all. Our stomach acid is much more strong than the gorillas. They have a very mild stomach acid. We need that to break down meat very quickly. Next, we have a very long small intestine compared to a gorilla's, relatively speaking. And that's where we break down meat. The acid goes to work in your stomach, and then when the meat passes to your duodenum, and then the next part, your ileum, or your jejunum, and then your ileum, the meat is gone before it ever makes it to your large intestine. And that's another myth you'll hear out there, is that meat rots in your colon, and nothing could be further from the truth. I've talked about that on other videos. Meat is gone within 2 hours of you eating it. It is completely broken down into a liquid called chyme, CHYME. You can look that up. And so if you ever hear somebody say, oh, meat rots in your colon, you can unfollow them right now, because they don't even understand the very basics of human gastrointestinal physiology. The next thing is, we know that gorillas eat lots of plants, and they have to let bacteria break down those plants so that they can get energy out of them. And to do this, they have a very large cecum, which is the first part of their large intestine, and they also have a much bigger large intestine than humans do. We have almost no cecum left at all. In fact, your appendix is what many scientists consider the vestige, what's left of this big cecum that we probably used to have. But as we got more efficient at eating meat, our cecum shriveled up, and now it's just a little appendix, and we have a tiny cecum, whereas a gorilla has this huge cecum because they have to have all these billions of bacteria to break down the food, the plants, to give them short-chain fatty acids. We might do a little of that in our gut as a secondary mechanism, but we're made to eat meat. There are multiple other differences between meat eaters and plant eaters, humans and gorillas, that you can look up and study on your own. Anthropology's got, I mean, they've all this stuff is known science. This is not up for debate in anthropology, but when it comes to medicine, a lot of doctors don't read anthropology, therefore they don't know. So next is, what's the next one? Your brain burns only glucose. There are multiple studies that show that this is not true at all. Your brain can burn beta-hydroxybutyrate. It can burn the ketones. It can probably even burn fatty acids, maybe even burn triglycerides, or at least break them down and then burn the fatty acids. Your brain does not have to have any glucose whatsoever. And if there is a population of brain cells that needs glucose, your liver can make that through a process called gluconeogenesis. You don't have to ever eat any glucose or any carbohydrates at all, and your brain will work great. In fact, some people in the comments are saying that their brain works better if they don't eat any carbohydrates at all, and I'm one of those people. That's why one of the many reasons I'm carnivore is my brain is on when I don't eat carbs. But if I eat the least amount of carbs, I feel slow and sluggish and I have problems thinking. So let's see if there's one more. I don't want to keep you guys too long. The meat and erection study. This is great. So they took a small group of men and split them in half. And this is a very small number, which is a problem for a scientific study. And the researchers were not blinded as to who got what. And the participants of the study were not blinded. So not only was it not single blinded, but it definitely wasn't double blinded. So a very small study, and everybody knew what each group was getting, whether they were getting the meat or the plant base. And so then they put these little things, which are erection meters, around their penis, and so some of them would eat like the plant-based burrito I was talking about earlier. Others would eat meat in their burrito. And then they would let them sleep with the erectionometer on their penis. And they said, oh, look, the guys who ate the plant-based burrito had better quality erections while they were asleep than the guys who ate the meat in their burrito. So this is a ridiculous study. You can't prove anything from a study where the researchers are not blinded. Almost without a doubt, these researchers believed in a plant-based diet. So their preconceived notions are going to leach into the research. This is why we came up with the scientific method to start with, is so that researchers' preconceived notions wouldn't sneak in to the results. And then plus the guys who were eating these diets, they knew whether they were getting meat or plants, and they I'm sure knew what these guys were looking for. And so there you go. This is non-science. This is something that if you tried to have a physicist use this kind of science to prove if a bridge were going to fall, he would be fired by using this kind of science. This is not any kind of science you can hang your hat on. This is ridiculous, okay? Another thing they said is that drinking cow's milk will raise your estrogen and lower your testosterone. I actually agree with them on this. That's why I don't drink milk, even full fat milk. I only use the fat from dairy and maybe some of the protein, but I never drink milk, whether skim milk, 1%, 2%, or whole milk, which is only 4% milk fat. I think that drinking milk is not good for you. I think it will raise your estrogen and lower your testosterone. And so there are 2 points that I agree with them on. And then finally, the ultimate argument, eating meat is bad for our earth. Now, I think it goes without saying that whether you're a vegan, plant-based person or whether you are a carnivore, you love the planet Earth and you want the planet Earth to be here for you and for your children and for your great-grandchildren and for all your posterity. We all love the earth and we all want what's best for the earth. I don't think vegans get the copyright on loving the earth. And so they throw up some graphics and some studies showing, oh, look, raising cattle wastes all this water and it's just terrible for the planet. when in reality, what the actual research shows is that factories, planes, and cars contribute most to the greenhouse gases, the carbon footprint, all that stuff is about factories, cars, and planes. And so, if the vegans really wanted to lower their carbon footprint, they should probably stop flying in jets to all of the vegan conferences and just sit at home. That would actually save more carbon than if I were to start eating plant-based burritos. So there you go. And they made other points in this movie, but I just really wanted to hit the highlights. Now I've got videos on YouTube about keto, about low carb, about carnivore. On my YouTube channel, if you'll just go to YouTube and search for Dr. Ken Berry, you'll find all my videos. There's over almost 250 videos you can watch for free now. Facebook rolled out a new thing called stars. I think there's a star at the bottom of the screen, and each star is worth a penny or something like that. And so Facebook wanted me to try this out and see. And so you guys have given me 250 stars, which is $2.50 for this video. Yes! But honestly, I don't care if you give me any stars or not. I just want to put this out there so that you can know the truth, so that you can help your family and your friends and the people you love know the truth about the proper human diet, and that it's not a plant-based diet. All right, I'm going to get out of here. I want you to get back to your day and share this video with someone, and then also watch the Game Changer movie with someone. Watch it with your kids, your teenagers, your grandkids, because they need to hear this argument, because they're going to hear it out there. You might as well go ahead and let them hear it at home, and then you can say, actually, I don't think that's true. This is what I think is true. And then you guys can have a discussion as friends or as family, instead of them just seeing this video that a lot of people would call propaganda, and them making a decision about the rest of their life, how they're going to feed them, not only themselves, but their kids and their grandkids. I'd rather they have a conversation with you, their family, or their friends before they make such a terrible decision. All right, guys, I'm out of here. This is Dr. Berry. I'll see you next time.